first step in installing TruLegacy Soffit is to put this piece on right here. This is what we call the soffit receiver. And this is going to go right on the freeze board here. And as you can see, what we're trying to preserve here is this wood soffit look. And so I have to keep this top flange right here at the same elevation as the bottom of my original subfascia here. And you'll see in a minute why that's important. So I'm going to hold that down. In this case, it's about 1/4 of an inch. You can go ahead and fasten it. To connect the soffit receiver end to end, notch the end back approximately 1/2 inch. Then slide the next piece over the notched end. Angle cut the face of the soffit receiver so that one piece fits inside the other. Here you can see how the angle cut on the face of the soffit receiver allows me to slide one piece inside the other to make a nice tight joint. So for ease of installation, I'm going to fasten the soffit receiver here in the center first, and then I'll move down and line my joint up again with the bottom side of the subfascia, so that this elevation and this elevation here are the same. So what I'm going to do here is measure this last little piece of soffit receiver. I'm going to measure from my butt end of my existing piece to the surface of the freeze board coming in the other direction. Then of course I add 3/4 of an inch to that so that it will slide inside the existing piece. First of all, we got to notch it back. So I'm going to hook from my notch, and then I'm going to mark 10 3/8, that was my measurement. Then I'm going to add 3/4 to that, which will fit behind the existing piece. And then I'm going to add another 3/4 to that. Now I've marked where my outside corners will be, where the piece is going to turn. So now I take my middle mark, so that's where the freeze soffit receiver is going to bend. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark these bottoms. So the marks on either side of my center mark are going to be where we mark the bottom. So the center mark is where the metal bends around the freeze board. The other two marks are where we cut our V's to get the corner to fit as it bends around. Now we're going to go ahead and cut it. First thing I'm going to cut is the top flange, where it actually folds. Then you want to cut your 45 to that mark, which takes the metal away so that you can bend around. And then I'm going to cut that 45 out. Now I've got to do the same thing to the nail flange on the bottom side. So I'm going to go to my two outside marks, cut those back, and I'm going to cut the one in the middle too. Flip it around, cut them all the way through from the back side. Notice cutting the top out first allows me to get my snips in there to cut the back side out later. Now what I do to make it easier is I break these loose pieces off, get them out of the way so I can get my snips in there to finish my angles. Now I make my relief cut in the bottom. So my first angle cut doesn't need to be a full 45 because that one's going to fit underneath the other one. And then to get my 45 cut for the one exposed, I got to fold that, open that up a little bit so I can fold it around, get my snips in there, and then bring it back around and make a complete corner. Use a pencil eraser to get your marks off. Voila. So what you can see I'm doing here now is I'm fitting that pre-cut corner right up on the face here. And then I can go ahead and fasten. So what we have here is a piece of TruLegacy Soffit. And as you can see, there's a rib running down the middle. So this is our parallel version of TruLegacy Soffit. In other words, the ribs in the soffit are going to run parallel to the wall, not perpendicular to the wall like conventional soffit these days. So I'm going to put this piece up in one piece. This does not get cut into little sections. This whole piece is going up in the overhang all in one piece. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put this piece of soffit up. As I said before, we're going to put it up in one piece, and we're going to feed it into that receiver on the wall that we've already installed. So we start at one end and just work our way down the panel, sliding it into the slot. So I'm sliding the soffit into the upper groove of my receiver. Once it fits all the way into the slot, it'll hang there, starting at one end. We're going to feed this into the other end of the piece of soffit and work our way down the panel. We go ahead and snap in the fascia lock. Now we're ready to fasten. An alternative to using a soffit connector when connecting two pieces of parallel soffit is to use a Corbel. So a Corbel simply is going to install on the underside of the joint and cover it up just like the soffit connector does. And Corbels can also be used as an architectural detail at either random or regular patterns up and down the soffit. To install the Corbel, I'm going to put these Corbel connectors on. The Corbel connector in the front here, this is what I call the front of the Corbel with the rolled edges. The soffit, this connector has to hang over a half of an inch. And the same thing on the back. This is going to fit into the soffit receiver. On the front of the Corbel, this is going to fit into the fascia lock, and that's what's going to hold it in place. Put a second screw in each one so they don't pivot. And I'll show you how this goes in. So now that I have my Corbel connectors in, I simply bring the Corbel up tight to the bottom side of the soffit, and you can see I'm at an angle. I'm going to bring it over here so the back is in position, covering up the joint between the two pieces of soffit, and then I'm going to pivot it. So I'm going to bring it around, get it perpendicular to the wall, and then just slide it back right over the joint.